We're gonna dine by candlelight at the table. Can you feel it coming?
Greetings.
Something about to
Hotep,
change.
Islam, Alaikum. Abalingani, Shalom, Abaru, Abuye, peace. What's up? Welcome to the very first episode of Setting the Table with yours truly, Chef Olutunde. Which the table becomes a ritual tool for the next 45 minutes for healthy relationship topics and conversations, words of wisdom, research, history, and intimacy outside of the bedroom, tips and strategies to maintaining romantic relationships built on trust and sustainable love. As we begin our first episode, I would like to begin with a simple observation. I want you to notice something. Right here, the table. Because for thousands of years, this very same simple piece of furniture has been humanity's most powerful tool for human connection. Now, let me take you back around 4,500 years ago to ancient Egypt. The year is roughly 2500 BC, and it is the era of one of the most amazing knife wonders of the world. Egyptian civilization wasn't just establishing itself as a historical and recognizable source on the planet of the earth that could never be erased, but the ancient Egyptians also made a very conscious decision that would change human behavior forever. They created a platform that still stands to the test of time. A place they created specifically for dining. Now, you might think, big deal. So what? We have tables, we have dining areas. Cool. And that may be true. But do you know the history behind this very thing we call the table? If not, let me enlighten you. During the First Dynasty era, the invention of the table was considered to be a beyond life technology and revolutionary act. Because before the table, eating was an act of survival. They hunt, they gather, consume to stay alive. But the ancient Egyptians said, what if eating and dining became something more? What if it became a deeper connection from a different angle? And lo and behold, the low stone platforms, the first original tables made out of stone, were created to keep food and objects from being on the ground. But here is what causes the idea to be so amazing. You see, the lone stone platforms were designed to civilize the act of eating, from survival to living, thus enhancing the act and quality of life. Now, people gathered and sat together, face to face. It transformed eating from an animal necessity to a pre-civilized human ritual. Now, let's fast forward to ancient Greece. The year is about 400 BC. The Greeks took the table idea and made it a sacred act. They call it the andron, the space for men. But more important, they understood something that many of us have forgotten today: the table, where philosophy happens, where debates and ciphers are implemented, where closing business deals happen, talks of peace, where ideas are born, where marriage proposals are made and accepted, where cultural tradition are still celebrated. Two people can sit for hours and not just eat, but they can connect on a deeper level, and on the deepest level of humanity. Socrates, for an example, he did not teach in classrooms. He taught at the table. You see, breaking bread, sharing wine, and asking questions, it changed how people were now seeing the world. The Romans, closely following behind, began to understand this concept too. So they created something called the triennium, a reclining space specifically designed for extended conversations, debates, dialogues, music, and poetry, and fellowship, all facilitated by the shared table experience. Now, a meal could last 6 hours or more, not because the food service was slow, but because the connection was now beginning too valuable to rush. When you light a candle, specifically, taking the time to fold napkins or arrange flowers, you are sending a message to your brain that says that this time is different, and that this time is important, and that this evening matters. For the Greeks, their moments wasn't just about nice casual meals. They were structured intimacy experiences that lasted for hours, where food became the drive for philosophy, great debates, storytelling, and deep human connections. Now, here's the insight. Ancient civilization understood, again, what modern couples have forgotten, that breaking bread together creates a condition of vulnerability, presence, and connection that cannot be assessed any other way. Let's dive a little deeper into history. When we look at the history in the life of Jesus Christ, we discover a social pattern in the way he chose to communicate sometimes with his disciples. We see when Jesus had something profound that needed to be expressed to his people, like his final instructions, his deepest love, his covenant to commitment, he didn't choose a temple, a mountaintop, or synagogue, or a room where a king's throne is. He simply chose the table. Okay. Now let's explore the preparation behind the Last Supper. According to the Bible, Jesus sent his disciples ahead to prepare the upper room. The Passover meal required a specific kind of setup, such as plenty of unleavened bread, fresh made wines, and abundance of a variety of fruits and vegetables, and a meal that was symbolic, are all arranged precisely across the table. And when we take a look deeper into this sacred preparation, we can discover that the preparation for the Passover wasn't what we call nowadays civil service. Instead, it was known as what they called back then mindfulness training. Now, some of you may ask, Chef, what is mindfulness training? To my understanding, mindfulness training is a reduced stress reduction. So for Jesus, this wasn't something done accidentally. No, it was very much intentional and deliberate, a symbolism that every person throughout history can understand. You see, the table is where a coveting happens. It's where covenants are sealed. And the Last Supper occurred in the upper room, which was a private, intimate space prepared specifically for Jesus' last meal and supper on earth. And it wasn't a public demonstration. It wasn't a sermon to the masses, but a gathered circle of those closest to him, gathering around the table, sharing food, truth, and dialogue. Now, let's jump forward to the Middle Ages. Say the year 500 to 1500 AD. You will find during that time in every castle, every manor, the table that became the symbol of power. It wasn't the throne, it was the dining hall. Because the Lord who feeds his people was understood to create personal loyalty among his people. Lost feats became heavily associated with power, critical grand hospitality, and friendship. It was known that the Lord who welcomed his guests at his table created a trustworthy bond with people, demonstrating more than wealth, that no written contract could simply duplicate. Enemies were now breaking bread together to bring peace. Conflicts was now being dissolved, and social dynamics were being maintained through the table. And it wasn't by chance, it was intentional. What we call intentional presence. Breaking bread together, it created an obligation, connections that can be trusted, that words could not do alone. And we can see throughout history, not because enemies suddenly liked each other, but it was because sharing food through something transactional that words could not, such as bonding, such as establishing a sense of peace, all at the table. And when we begin to analyze and really analyze the current era that we are now living in, you have to wonder what happened. What happened to the fellowship at the table? You know, it was unheard of in my family as a child to take your food away from the table and go into a room somewhere else. It was unheard of. I can remember a time when me and my parents would call me and my sisters together at the table, and we all had to sit at the table. And this became another moment in our household to create quality time. You see, when we ate, laughed, and held conversations and joked and jonesed on each other, we discussed current affairs. We gossiped. We even sometimes sang, sometimes even cried, all there at the family's dinner table. When we look at during the 1950s, which is way before my time, American history recorded various American homes and their experiences around a dinner table. It was a common celebration for American families to enjoy a nice Sunday dinner together, especially after church. During Easter and during the 4th of July holidays, because it was understood across many American households that the family dinner became the centerpiece of the American family lifestyle. And not because people all of a sudden became virtuous, but because there was no competing distractions like the cell phone, no iPads, just quality time. In these earlier days, it was known that only those that sit at a dinner table was something to be inspired to. And that to this very day, it has become a symbol, American power. Even though a large number of people nowadays feel so disconnected from the dinner table, the history of the dinner table still continue to speak to structure and the cultural symbolism still attached to it. And in fine dining hospitality, the table is often described as the physical expression of welcome. A beautifully prepared table that speaks in silence and says, "You matter." We prepared this experience exclusively for you. When we look at society, we see throughout history that the dinner table has maintained one of the greatest life stages for power, for memory, and for social performances. The table, where elite business deals are closed with a simple, firm handshake and a nice medium steak, where political financial investments were negotiated and even major drug deals were all conducted at a table. Now let's look at this particular table, which is a round table. It continues to represent being an important symbol of openness, unity, and equality. With no designated head at the table, making this round table an ideal for family gatherings and collaborative settings, in addition to the spiritual manifestation of the round table. It eliminates hierarchy and isolation, fostering open communication, mutual respect, and a sense of shared community among all those who gather around this circle of life that continues to attract and reflect a desire for a much more deeper and meaningful connection. In such a fragmented world, the table, the table in luxury dining, for example, luxury dining, to my understanding, after working so many years in this industry, it's not about a bunch of expensive ingredients. I'm just going to be real and put it out there. It's not about a bunch of expensive ingredients, but more so it's about creating a meaningful experience. The table, where those experiences become very tangible. A perfectly cooked meal may satisfy hunger, but a thoughtfully curated table can create life lasting memories. It can strengthen relationships, it can inspire conversations, it can celebrate milestones and foster a deeper emotional connection. So, with all that being said, I would like to start this night off with an original poem. A poem not to mimic and not attempt to duplicate, but to celebrate and honor a legacy of one of the most respected voices in American literature and in the civil rights movements. And I am speaking of none other than Miss Maya Angelou. And it is with great honor tonight that I recite this poem in her memory and in her spirit. Okay. The name of this piece is called Still I Set the Table. You may cut me from your calendar, fill my evening with obligations, stack my hours high with the weight of everything that needs doing. But still, like the moonlight that finds its way through the window, like jasmine that insists on blooming through the iron fence, still I set the table. You see, I have learned this much in life. That love is not a feeling that arrives and stays without tending. It is a guarding, stubborn, and gorgeous that demands that you shamelessly put your hands deep in the soil, your face towards the sunlight, your willingness to show up even when the seasons feel wrong. I set the table. because I know what lives at the center of it. Not the china, not the crystals, not even the candles, not even an extraordinary meal that arrives like a love letter written in saffron and dark wine. What lives at the center is us. Everything we survived, everything that we choose, everything that we choose. Every morning we woke up and decided without a ceremony, you and I. So bring your tiredness, bring your shoulders to carry the weight of the world. Bring your sometimes complicated ways. Bring that version of yourself that the weak has handled roughly. And sit. Because I did not set this table for the best version of you. No. I set it for the real you. The whole you. The one that is mine's. All mine's. I set the table for us. You and I, who continue showing up for one another. I set the table for us because I choose you still. One thing I really enjoy about that poem is that it defines the table as a symbol of connection and as a symbol of love that goes beyond the physical table itself. Within the context of this poem, it also represents the importance of connection with the act of preparing and sharing food served as a tangible evidence of caring, empathy, compassion, patience, and the fundamental human desire to belong, to be welcomed, to be intentionally received, and to understand and articulate the symbolism. Now, let's examine several meaningful dynamics, such as the act of love, moving in real motion, time and in action, setting the table for someone else besides yourself is an intentional physical manifestation of love that first start as a thought, which is created in the spirit realm and through the physical manifestation of effort, action, compassion, and willingness, you bring that very thought, all thoughts, from the spirit realm and to the physical, thus giving it life. Taking the time to shop and plan and gather recipes. Taking the time to arrange your plates and silverware, wine glasses and napkins, candles and dessert, and a Pacific meal that shows your mate or family members that they are worth the effort. And that not only are they important, but they are highly valued. It communicates that I want you here, that I need you here, and that I want you to feel special, welcome, appreciated, and loved. Now, when I decided to put this little show together, I didn't want to present what so many other chefs were doing. I wanted to present my topics differently, not like we were sitting in some kind of clinic, but I wanted to introduce something totally new, brand new, as an offering to all of you. As the founder and innovator of a new approach to relationship intervention, I wanted to combine the concept of fine dining experiences with quality time, meaningful engagements, and emotional intimacy outside of the bedroom into a category of its own, thus giving birth to what I call relationship intervention hospitality, or relationship hospitality for short. Now, for all those of you who didn't want a clinical approach teaching you how to communicate better, or a therapist digging into your childhood past, see, I wanted to create something more fundamental, a systematic destruction that created and destroyed human connections for hundreds of years. And the first of its kind comprehension effort to reclaim the dinner table as it was originally designed throughout humanity, which is a sacred space for humanity, for healing, and a kind of non-sexual intimacy that would empower relationships, healing and reconnection, healthier relationships, very possible. Now, to understand how my framework works, you have to understand what has been lost in many families, and understanding the original origin of the dinner table isn't just a piece of furniture. Again, it's humanity's primary relationship tool since the beginning of real civilization. And the principles of my framework are the direct descendants of this reality. Now, here's an insight. Ancient civilization understood what most married couples, again, nowadays have forgotten. And I repeat that, have forgotten. That breaking bread together is an intimate setting that creates the healthy conditions of intentional presence, connections that cannot be accessed any other way. Innovation isn't just creating some type of technology or some new form of infused dish. Sometimes it's simply seeing an old problem differently. So when people ask me what makes intimate occasions in home dining different, I simply show them. I show them how I don't simply serve a 5 to 7 course meal, but I create a structure, personalized experience where couples can reconnect, have deeper conversations, reflect with intentional hospitality. And that's the difference between me and any other private chef. As a professional chef and culinary artist, husband, and father, my personal mission is simple: to redefine hospitality by creating experiences that strengthen emotional connection, healing, restore meaningful conversations, and help couples build healthier relationships. One table, one conversation, and one intentional experience at a time. Now, let me share with all of you something what I found and discovered from research. And this is research you can look up yourself. And why the work that I do is so important. Because this is not about sentiments. This is more about measurable and positive, repeatable outcomes. Harvard University time series studies on happiness in relationships, it showed that one consistent factor of long-term quality relationships, that it wasn't wealth, that it isn't accomplished achievements, nor the factor of health. Instead, it was relationships and how to build quality ones. Again, the study showed that it was relationships and how to build quality ones through repeated experiences of being truly seen and heard. And their conclusion and what they had discovered was the table. Harvard University discovered that it was the table as a centerpiece that made all possible. Let's look at another research study from the American Psychological Association. Found that couples who shared meals together 4 or 5 times a week reported 67% higher relationship satisfaction, 52% lower divorce rates, 41% better emotional communication, 73% stronger physical intimacy. And these are not small numbers. No. So now you might think, okay, couples that eat together are already close. And maybe they are, eating together. Because it's a fact that coming together at a table, it brings a sense of happiness when two people are truly aligned with each other. Now, the University of Michigan discovered that children that eat regular family dinners show 40% higher emotional intelligence, 68% better mood regulations, 52% lower anxiety and depression, and 63% better academic performances. And these are proven case studies that you can research yourself. But here is what matters, I believe, for adults: These human outputs, such as emotional intelligence, mood regulations, and ability to handle stress, don't fade. It doesn't disappear. They continue to build and develop within every child who had this positive experience. From childhood to adulthood, these young, inspiring adults often become very successful in life by building better people skills, interpersonal skills, and communication skills, as well as leadership skills and successful marriages. Because the case studies show if you grew up in a family setting where there was dinner and love, most likely you will develop a natural understanding for true intimacy. I repeat that. Case study shows if you grew up inside a household where you and your family sat at the dinner table harmoniously and with love, you have a natural understanding for intimacy outside of the bedroom. I want to take a few minutes to share one of my clients' real life experiences. And for the sake of privacy, I will call them, let's say Janet and Mike. Okay. Janet and Mike, after 18 years of marriage, they weren't fighting like most couples were fighting these days. In fact, they rarely argued, but they also rarely talked. Every evening ended up looking the same. Mike would come home from work feeling exhausted as Janet tended to the children. Family dinner nights were whatever could be made the fastest. They had the television constantly on, phones constantly attended to. Conversations became distant and it became logistics. Who's picking up the kids? Did you pay the mortgage? What time is your meeting? And this went on for years. Until one evening, Janet quietly says something to Mike that stopped Mike entirely in his tracks. She told him for the first time in years of their marriage that she believes that she and Mike didn't stop loving each other. Instead, she believed that they have stopped knowing each other. And that was the most honest statement Mike had ever heard from her. And it changed everything for Mike. His wife's words confused him so much that he ended up sharing this conversation with a friend of his who just happened to be one of my most frequent customers, which is how I met Janet and Mike and ended up doing business with them. He and his wife decided to book the Reignite the Flame Couple Reset Dining Experiences package. Now, let's fast forward to the night of the event. I entered the house. It was very quiet. No television going on, no distraction. I didn't even sell cell phones. It was no interruptions. They even have sent the children to Janet's mom so that they can really enjoy that reconnecting and healing and quality time together. Just them in a very own private, intimate occasion. Of course, along with a beautiful prepared meal and a menu that they had designed together. There was soft music, we had candles, intentional conversations. I included prompt cards that author questions that help them to engage even more with each other, such as, what is something that you've been carrying that I don't know about? I intentionally placed that particular card on the table between them before serving desserts and walking away and giving them the privacy that they were paying for. Now, because of the information that I gathered from their consultation, I knew areas where they were struggling in their marriage, like being open and honest and just openly communicating effectively and speaking the truth without feeling like they are going to be judged or punished. And as I returned minutes later, preparing to serve desserts, I kind of casually glanced at Mike, who was now looking down. I don't know at that particular moment if he was trying to avoid eye contact, but I knew he was looking down. And for the first time in years, I heard him speak and openly speak to his wife how overwhelmed he had become trying to provide for his family. While Janet, on the other hand, she felt she was no longer being pursued. And in my opinion, neither one of them needed someone to fix their conversation. They simply needed a place where the conversation could finally happen. And guess what? They began fixing the problem themselves. They just needed someone like me to show them that it was very possible. And as I was cleaning up and preparing to leave, I could hear them just having a good time, laughing, like really honestly enjoying each other, laughing. And I knew that they had made a breakthrough and reconnected. And by the end of the evening, they were no longer talking about what was wrong. Instead, they were now talking about where they wanted to go together next. And that, my friends, is the only outcome that I and my clients look for. Just a breakthrough. When it seems like there is none. This is the power of reconnection. This is the power of emotional safety, intentional, instructed environment. This is the power at the table. In closing, I would like to leave you all with this. Sometimes the greatest breakthrough in relationships isn't finding the perfect answer. It's simply finding or finally asking the right questions. And that's what intimate occasions in home dining is all about. Now, I would like to take that same energy of connecting and ask each and every one of you to continue showing up, being part of this open conversation and engage where you fit in, you know? So if you have any questions, any ideas, any comments or concerns, please leave them. Leave them. And I will address them if you want me to. I will, we can actually turn them into topics to have a dialogue. You know, I wanted to build this to be a platform for everyone who are looking to take their relationship to the next level. I created this platform for that particular reason. So again, please engage. Cost you nothing. It is totally free. And I would love for you to be part of this experience so that we can grow and learn from each other. Creating those intentional moments where love has room to breathe again, where conversations are no longer assumptions, where couples rediscover not only each other, but themselves. And I leave you with this. There was an author by the name of Laurie Colwin who once said, "The table is a meeting place, a gathering ground, a source of substance and nourishment, and a place of sharing, talking, and laughter. And it is also where personal dreams are shared, where families and marriages are strengthened, and sometimes it's where a needed relationship find its way home." So here's my challenge to all of you. Before life gets too busy again, before the phones, notifications, and the emails and the distractions take over, set one intentional night aside. Turn off the televisions, put away the phones, dim the lights, light a candle, and share a meal. And by you sharing this meal and sharing this quality time, ask your partner one meaningful question. I guarantee you, you will be surprised what can happen when two people get together and decides to be seen, to be felt, and to be heard once again. So if tonight conversation inspired you in any kind of way, I would love to invite you to visit Intimate Occasions in Home Dining.net to learn more. You can actually go to the menu and look for Outside of the Bedroom ebook and download your free sample. You can download your free sample ebook. This will give you insight of the actual framework that I have created. There are tools, there are tests, there are information that you and your mate can share together. There are a lot of resources in that book that could help couples reconnect at one conversation at a time. And please, don't forget to follow me and become part of the movement for healthy relationships. So please join me again next week as we go into more in-depth conversation, wisdom, research, and tips on being the best version of yourself and your marriage, and intentional practices that strengthen romantic connections from the inside out. Until then, I am Chef Olutunde. Peace. And remember, the strongest relationships aren't built in extraordinary moments. They are built in intentional ones. Good night. God bless. And I will see you next time at Setting the Table.
Pull up because I'm setting